All right, folks, welcome back to Study Hall. Today, we're going to crack open a textbook, metaphorically speaking, of course, and take a deep dive into something that sounds about as exciting as watching paint dry, the CHAPS and Science Act. Don't worry, I promise we'll make it fun.
Well, some might say this is the kind of bill that keeps the lights on for American innovation. So maybe a little more exciting than watching paint dry.
Okay, fair point. But you got to admit, legislation doesn't exactly scream edge-of-your-seat thriller. Anyway, before we get lost in a sea of legal jargon, we're specifically zooming in on Title III, the part that's all about supercharging American science and tech through the National Science Foundation, or NSF for those in the know.
And that's where it gets interesting. It's not just throwing money at science projects. It's about strategically investing in areas that will keep the U.S. at the forefront of the global game. We're talking national security, economic competitiveness, tackling climate change, the whole shebang.
Right, so Congress basically lays out the why behind this whole funding spree right from the start. It's like they're saying, listen up, this is important stuff.
And one of the things that jumps out right away is the emphasis on diversity and inclusion. They really want to make sure everyone has a seat at the science table, no matter their background or where they're from.
It's definitely a shift in focus. There's even a line about avoiding undue geographic concentration of research funding, which suggests a push to spread the love and level the playing field for institutions across the country.
So no more science happening just on the coast. We're bringing it to the heartland, too. I like the sound of that. And speaking of spreading the love, let's talk about our first main point, STEM education. This bill is basically showering STEM education with cash at every level, from those little kiddos in pre-K all the way to the brainiacs getting their PhDs. Think of it like this. They're creating a talent pipeline, nurturing future generations of scientists, engineers, and innovators. The bill even specifically calls out expanding programs like the Robert Noyce Teacher Scholarship Program, which helps train those who will inspire the next Einstein, and the Graduate Research Fellowship Program, which supports the research stars of tomorrow.
And there's this super cool pilot program to create centers dedicated to giving undergrads hands-on research experience. I mean, imagine being able to actually do real science while you're still in college, not just reading about it in a textbook. That's got to be a game changer for those aspiring scientists, right?
Absolutely. It's like giving them a taste of the real deal, letting them get their hands dirty in the lab and see what research is all about. That kind of experience can really solidify a passion for science and set them on a path to a fulfilling career.
Okay, I'm sold. Sign me up for Science Camp 2.0.
Yeah.
But seriously, I think it's amazing that they're recognizing the importance of early exposure to research. But it's not just about churning out more scientists, right? This bill is also about making sure the STEM workforce reflects the beautiful diversity of our country.
You hit the nail on the head. They're not just throwing money at the problem. They're taking concrete steps to create a more inclusive STEM ecosystem. We're talking about boosting participation from historically underrepresented groups, increasing geographic diversity in research funding, and even addressing the often overlooked issue of graduate student mental health.
Wait, hold up. Graduate student mental health. That's in there.
It is, because let's be real, research can be demanding and stressful, especially at the graduate level.
Yeah.
And if we want to attract and retain top talent in STEM, we need to make sure we're creating a supportive environment where those bright minds can thrive, not just burn out.
Okay, that's a really good point. I'm all for prioritizing mental well-being, especially in a field as demanding as research. And speaking of challenges, let's move on to our third point, research security. In this globalized world where collaboration is key, we also need to make sure we're protecting American research and ideas from those who might not have our best interests at heart.
Right. It's like walking a tightrope. We want to encourage international cooperation and sharing of knowledge, but we also need to safeguard our intellectual property and national security interests. And this bill takes that very seriously.
Okay, so how exactly are they planning to do that? Do they have a secret agent division within the NSF now?
Not quite James Bond level, but they are creating a whole new Office of Research, Security, and Policy within the NSF. This office will be tasked with assessing risks, educating researchers about potential threats, and basically making sure we're not handing over our scientific secrets on a silver platter.
Makes sense. You wouldn't want some foreign power swooping in and stealing the blueprints for the next big technological breakthrough. But I gotta ask, doesn't this kind of clash with the whole diversity and inclusion thing we were talking about?
That's where it gets tricky. There's a provision in the bill that sparked quite a bit of debate. It proposes potentially restricting NSF funding to universities that host Confucius Institutes, unless they meet certain requirements for academic freedom and transparency.
Confucius Institutes. I feel like I've heard that term before, but refresh my memory.
They're centers funded by the Chinese government that offer Chinese language and cultural programs. Some folks argue that they're a way for China to exert soft power and potentially influence research on U.S. campuses, while others see them as harmless cultural exchange programs.
Ah, I see. So it's a bit of a geopolitical hot potato. This bill is getting more interesting by the minute. It's not just about science, it's about navigating this complex world of international relations and protecting American interests.
Exactly. It's about finding that sweet spot where we can foster global scientific collaboration while also safeguarding our own national interests. And that's a conversation we're going to continue to have in the coming years as research becomes increasingly international and interconnected.
Well, it's a good thing we're having this conversation here on Study Hall then, helping our listeners make sense of these complex issues, one deep dive at a time. But before we get too deep into the weeds of international intrigue, let's switch gears and talk about how this bill aims to catapult American science and tech into the future.
That's where our next point comes in. From fundamental science to cutting-edge tech. This bill isn't just about making incremental improvements. It's about funding the kind of research that could lead to breakthroughs. Breakthroughs we can't even imagine yet.
Okay, color me intrigued. What kind of research are we talking about here?
Think big picture stuff. Climate change, clean energy, advanced manufacturing, all of those fields that are crucial for a sustainable future. And it's not just about throwing money at the problems, it's about supporting a diverse range of approaches and encouraging collaboration across disciplines.
So it's like they're creating a giant scientific sandbox and saying, go play, make discoveries, and maybe save the world while you're at it.
Pretty much. And speaking of playing in the sandbox, there's a section in the bill specifically dedicated to astronomy and satellite constellations. Because you know those shiny new mega constellations of satellites we keep launching? Turns out they can really mess with astronomical observation.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. It's like having a giant disco ball in space,
Yeah.
ruining the view for everyone trying to study the stars.
Exactly. So the bill directs the NSF to figure out ways to mitigate this interference and make sure our astronomers can keep doing their awesome space-gazing work.
See, this is why I love this bill. It's not just about funding science. It's about anticipating those unintended consequences of technological advancement and actually trying to solve them.
It's like they're playing 4D chess with the future of science and technology. And speaking of the future, this bill has a whole section dedicated to creating a new directorate within the NSF. Get ready for this. The Directorate for Technology Innovation and Partnerships.
Wow, that's a mouthful. What exactly does this new directorate do?
Think of it as the NSF's turbocharged engine for turning research into real-world solutions. It's going to focus on key technology areas like artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and advanced manufacturing, all while keeping a close eye on the potential societal impacts of these game-changing technologies.
So it's not just about building cool gadgets. It's about making sure those gadgets actually benefit society.
Yeah.
And don't create a dystopian nightmare scenario like we've seen in so many sci-fi movies.
Exactly. And that's actually built into the bill itself. It requires this new directorate to consider the ethical, legal, and societal considerations of its work, not just the technical aspects.
Okay, that's reassuring. It's like they're putting up guardrails to make sure we don't accidentally veer off the road into a technological black hole. But seriously, I think that's a really important aspect. It's not just about innovation for innovation's sake. It's about using technology to create a better future for everyone.
And that brings us to one of the most exciting parts of this bill, the focus on building a robust microelectronics workforce in the United States.
Microelectronics, that sounds awfully specific. Why are they so focused on that particular area?
Well, microelectronics are the tiny brains behind pretty much every electronic device we use today. From our smartphones and laptops to cars and airplanes, they're essential for everything from national security to economic competitiveness. And right now, the U.S. is heavily reliant on other countries, particularly in Asia, for its microelectronics supply chain. This bill aims to change that.
So it's about bringing those manufacturing jobs back to the U.S.
Yeah.
Making sure we're not dependent on other countries for such critical technology.
Exactly. And they're not just talking about building factories. It's about cultivating a skilled workforce that can design, manufacture, and innovate in the field of microelectronics.
Okay, so how do they plan to do that? Are they going to start offering microelectronics 101 in high schools now?
Well, they're certainly thinking big. The bill calls for developing industry-oriented curricula, creating training programs for teachers, and supporting those innovative industry pathway programs that connect high school vocational schools, the military colleges, and even graduate programs.
Wow, it's like they're building a microelectronics talent pipeline from the ground up. It's pretty impressive.
It is, and they're not just focused on technical skills. They're also emphasizing the importance of fostering creativity and problem solving, those essential skills that drive innovation. The bill even encourages informal, hands-on microelectronics learning opportunities for pre-K-12 students. Think competitions, after-school programs, anything that sparks that early interest in STEM.
So it's like they're saying, hey, kids, forget the video games. Come build your own microchips. I love that. But let's be real. Not everyone is going to become a microelectronics engineer. What about the folks who are pursuing more traditional academic careers in STEM? Does this bill address their needs as well?
Absolutely. There's a whole section dedicated to graduate STEM education, recognizing the importance of nurturing the next generation of researchers and educators. For instance, the bill calls for updating the requirements for mentoring plans for postdoctoral researchers.
Mentoring. That sounds kind of basic. Why is that even in the bill?
Well, it's more important than you might think. Postdocs are at a crucial stage in their careers, transitioning from being a student to becoming an independent researcher. Having a strong mentor can make all the difference in their success. It's about providing guidance support and helping them navigate the often complex world of academia.
Okay, I see. It's like having a Jedi Master to guide you on your path to becoming a research Jedi.
Exactly. And the bill goes beyond traditional mentorship models. It calls for developing innovative approaches to facilitating career exploration for graduate students and postdocs. This could include work-integrated learning opportunities, internships, and even exploring non-academic career paths.
So it's about recognizing that a PhD in STEM doesn't just have to lead to a professorship, that there are all sorts of cool and fulfilling career paths out there.
Precisely. And speaking of career paths, there's a section in the bill that I think a lot of graduate students will be interested in, the one about a study on graduate student funding.
Ah, yes, the eternal struggle of trying to make ends meet while pursuing a higher degree. What does the bill say about that?
Well, it directs the NSF to evaluate different funding models for graduate students, including fellowships, traineeships, and other mechanisms. The goal is to find the best ways to support these students financially while they're pursuing their research.
It's about recognizing that financial stress can be a major barrier to success in graduate school, right?
Absolutely. And it's about ensuring that talented individuals from all socioeconomic backgrounds have the opportunity to pursue a graduate degree in STEM.
Okay, so they're trying to make sure that a lack of money doesn't prevent someone from becoming the next Marie Curie or Albert Einstein. I like that.
And speaking of attracting top talent, there's a section in the bill that I think is particularly innovative, the one about AI scholarship for service.
AI scholarship for service. Okay, that sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
It's essentially a program to recruit and train the next generation of AI professionals to meet the needs of federal, state, local, and tribal governments. It's similar to the CyberCorps Scholarship for Service program, but for AI.
So students would receive scholarships in exchange for a commitment to work in the public sector after they graduate.
Exactly. The idea is to attract top talent to government agencies, where they can apply their AI skills to solve real-world problems. It's a win-win. The students get financial support for their education, and the government gains access to a pool of highly skilled AI professionals.
That's a really smart move, especially considering how important AI is becoming in pretty much every aspect of our lives.
Absolutely. We need people who understand AI working in government to help us navigate the ethical and societal implications of this powerful technology.
Okay, so we've covered STEM education and workforce development. What else is in this bill that's going to make a big impact on the future of American research?
Well, remember our conversation about research security earlier? That's another area where this bill gets really specific.
Right, we're talking about that new office within the NSF and the whole Confucius Institute debate. What else did they come up with?
Well, one of the big things is the establishment of a Research Security and Integrity Information Sharing Analysis Organization, or RSI-ISO for short.
RSI-ISO. I'm going to need you to break that down for me. What exactly is this organization and why is it so important?
Think of it as a central hub for information sharing and collaboration on all things related to research security. It would bring together universities, nonprofit research institutions, and businesses to share best practices, analyze security threats, and develop strategies for protecting sensitive research data.
So it's like a collective defense against those who might try to steal or compromise valuable research.
Exactly. It's about creating a more secure and resilient research environment, which is essential for fostering innovation and maintaining U.S. competitiveness.
And speaking of protecting U.S. interests, there's also a section in the bill that deals specifically with foreign influence in research right. This is a pretty sensitive topic these days.
You're right. It's a tricky issue balancing the benefits of international collaboration with the need to protect national interests. The bill takes a cautious approach, calling for increased scrutiny of foreign financial support received by research institutions, particularly from countries of concern.
So it's about making sure that foreign funding doesn't come with strings attached that could compromise academic freedom or U.S. national security.
Exactly. It's a tightrope walk, but it's an important conversation to have. We need to be aware of the potential risks, while also fostering international collaboration that benefits everyone.
Well, this deep dive into the TUH-GPS and Science Act is really highlighting how interconnected science and geopolitics have become.
It's a new world out there, and this bill is trying to navigate those complexities. But it's not just about security and competition. It's also about investing in the kind of fundamental research that can lead to truly groundbreaking discoveries.
We were talking earlier about those big picture challenges,
Yeah.
like climate change and clean energy.
Exactly. The bill makes it clear that fundamental research is a top priority. It emphasizes supporting a wide range of research areas, everything from materials science and nanotechnology to the social sciences and humanities.
So it's not just about building the next cool gadget. It's about advancing knowledge in all areas of science and scholarship.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that fundamental research is the wellspring from which future innovations will flow.
Right. Sometimes the most amazing discoveries come from those unexpected places, from those scientists who are just driven by pure curiosity and a desire to understand the world around them.
And this bill is trying to create the conditions where those kinds of discoveries can flourish. It's not just about funding specific research projects. It's about supporting the infrastructure and resources that researchers need to do their best work. Things like facility operation and maintenance, helium conservation.
Helium conservation. Wait, what does helium have to do with scientific research?
Helium is essential for a lot of scientific instruments, like
Okay.
MRI machines and telescopes. And it's a finite resource, so the bill recognizes the importance of conserving helium and making sure it's available for scientific research.
Okay, that makes sense. It's the kind of behind-the-scenes detail that most people wouldn't even think about,
Mm-hmm.
but it's crucial for keeping science moving forward.
Exactly. And speaking of essential infrastructure, there's a section in the bill about creating a national secure data service.
A national secure data service. What's that all about?
It's a really interesting idea. The bill proposes establishing a national service that would allow researchers to access and analyze sensitive data while ensuring privacy and confidentiality.
Okay, I can see how that would be incredibly valuable for researchers, especially in fields like healthcare and social sciences, where you're dealing with sensitive personal information.
Exactly. Imagine the possibilities if researchers could safely and securely access and analyze vast data sets on health outcomes, economic trends, or even environmental patterns. The potential for breakthroughs is enormous.
It's like unlocking a treasure trove of knowledge, while still respecting people's privacy and keeping their data safe.
And it highlights the importance of collaboration, not just among researchers, but also between government agencies, research institutions, and even the private sector. It's a collective effort to unlock the potential of data for the benefit of society.
Speaking of collaboration, there's also a section in the bill that specifically encourages partnerships between academia and industry. Right, that's where a lot of those aha moments in the lab get translated into real-world applications.
You're right. The bill recognizes that innovation thrives when there's a strong connection between the research community and the marketplace. It encourages the development of partnerships that can help bridge the gap between scientific discovery and commercialization.
So it's about making sure those groundbreaking research discoveries don't just stay locked away in a lab somewhere gathering dust on a shelf. It's about getting those innovations out into the world where they can make a real difference.
Precisely. And it's not just about economic benefits. These partnerships can also help address societal challenges, from climate change to healthcare disparities.
It's about making sure that research priorities are aligned with the needs of society, ensuring that scientific advancements are used to solve real-world problems.
And it's about creating a virtuous cycle, where the success of these partnerships fuels further investment in research and innovation.
It's all about creating an ecosystem where innovation can flourish. From those early sparks of curiosity in a pre-K classroom, to the groundbreaking research happening at universities and national labs, all the way to those companies that are turning scientific discoveries into products and services that improve our lives.
It's a vision of a future where the U.S. remains at the forefront of science and technology, driving progress and prosperity for all Americans.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the GPS and Science Act. From STEM education and workforce development to research security and cutting-edge technologies. It's clear that this bill is aiming to shape the future of American research and innovation for years to come.
It's a call to action for all of us, scientists, engineers, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and citizens alike, to work together to create a brighter and more innovative future.
Well said. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into the GPS and Science Act. But I hope our listeners are walking away with a better understanding of what this bill aims to do and why it matters. It's not just about funding science. It's about shaping the future of American research innovation and technological leadership.
It's about investing in the people, ideas, and infrastructure that will drive progress and prosperity for generations to come.
And on that inspiring note, we'll leave you with this final thought. With all these investments in STEM, what new discoveries and technologies do you think we might see in the next decade? What role do you think you can play in shaping that future?
The future is ours to create, and it's up to each of us to contribute our unique talents and perspectives to building a world where science and technology serve the greater good.
So think big, dream bold, and never stop exploring. Until next time on Study Hall.